My parents always took my sister's lies as gospel. When she framed me for embezzlement at work, they said, "We raised you better." My boss slammed a file on the table. "We know the truth now." I looked straight at my sister and said, "Hope orange is still your color." She turned white as the cops entered. "I'm Troy. Just turned 41, been living in Des Moines all my life, and for most of that time, I've been the good kid. Not that it ever really counted for much. My sister Callie was the golden child. Not because she earned it, but because she knew how to spin a story so sweet it made people forget the wreckage she left behind. She lied, manipulated, conned. Hell, she even faked a seizure in high school once to get out of taking a biology exam. I'm not joking. And my parents, Hank and Doreen, they bought every word out of her mouth like it was scripture. Callie and I are 3 years apart. When we were kids, she'd break something, and I'd get blamed for leaving it where she could knock it over. When we got older, she got caught sneaking out to go meet some sketchy guy with a neck tattoo and a warrant, and my dad said, "Well, you shouldn't have told her she couldn't have friends." She stole money from mom's purse in college and said I borrowed it, and they actually asked me for it back. I'd been working 2 jobs at the time just to keep gas in my hand-me-down Honda. You'd think maybe things would level out as we got older, but nope. She got better at lying. Sharper. More convincing. And they got more protective. "She's sensitive," Mom would say. "Not everyone handles pressure like you do." Yeah, maybe because I had to handle my own and hers. Anyway, I tried to keep my distance. I built my own life. Got my degree in accounting. Worked my way up from an assistant to a financial analyst. I stayed out of drama. Didn't date around. Didn't party. I saved my money. Paid off my loans early. And bought a 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Simple. Predictable. Peaceful. Then 2 years ago, Callie showed up in Des Moines. Out of nowhere. We hadn't talked much in the last few years, which was kind of by design. She'd been bouncing around cities, Portland, Denver, St. Louis, burning through jobs and relationships like matches. I'd heard from my mom that she was trying to find her passion, which is code in our family for failing but pretending it's a spiritual journey. Anyway, she called me one Tuesday afternoon. "Troy," she sings through the phone, "guess what? I'm moving to Des Moines." I blinked at my monitor. "Why?" "Oh my God, rude. Maybe I missed my big brother. You haven't called me in almost 2 years." She laughed. "That's fair. Okay, truth? I got a job. Like a real one. Marketing assistant at that company you work at. Midland Food Services? I interviewed last week and got it." I felt a weird twist in my gut. "You're gonna be working here? Isn't it fun? We'll be like work siblings." Yeah, except I already had a sister, and I didn't like her much. I should have said something then. Should have set a boundary. But I didn't want to be that guy. Cold, bitter, distant. So I just said, "Well, congratulations. Let me know when you're settled in." She did more than that. Over the next few weeks, she slowly wormed her way into my work life. She'd stop by my office just to say hi, bring me coffee, always the wrong kind, and loudly tell people in the break room stories about us growing up, which usually painted me as the uptight, controlling big brother and her as the quirky, misunderstood artist. I laughed it off. Tried to keep things professional. She seemed to be doing okay, at least at first. Dress code compliant, on time, chatting with the right people. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was turning a new leaf. And then, one Monday morning, I got called into Adler's office. Now, Mr. Adler isn't the kind of guy who likes chit-chat. He's been with the company 20-something years, runs a tight ship, and you never want to be summoned unexpectedly. "Close the door, Troy," he said, eyes like granite. I did. Sat down. Noticed a thick manila folder on the table. "We have a problem," he said. I swear my heart started pounding like a drumline. "Okay?" He pushed the folder toward me. "We found irregularities in the financial logs. Wire transfers to unverified vendors, flagged reimbursements, and they're all tied to your login credentials." I opened the folder. My hands went cold. "This isn't right," I said. "I didn't authorize any of this." His eyes narrowed. "Then who did?" I didn't have an answer. I was put on administrative leave pending an internal audit. I walked out of that office in a fog. The drive home barely registered. I remember sitting on my couch in silence for hours, staring at the folder copies they let me take, trying to make sense of it. That night, I called my parents. "You what?" My dad barked. "They suspended you?" "I didn't do anything," I said. "They think I embezzled money." "It's not me." There was a pause. Then my mom's voice, softer but sharper. "Troy, we raised you better than that." I think that hurt worse than Adler's suspicion. I almost laughed. "You think I did it?" "We don't know what to think," she said. "But Callie said you've been acting strange lately. Stressed. Distant." I could have screamed. "Callie," I said. You're talking to Callie about this? She's worried about you. Of course she was. The next few weeks were hell. I hired an attorney, paid a forensic tech out of pocket to examine my work-issued laptop, and barely slept. My lawyer advised me not to confront Callie directly, but I knew. I knew it was her. She had access. She had a motive. And she was probably counting on me to roll over, like always. I didn't. And then the break came. The IT department did a deep dive into the security system logs. Turns out someone had been accessing my terminal remotely, on nights I wasn't even logged in. Even better? Security camera footage showed Callie entering my department after hours. She used her badge to get in. They called me back to the office. This time it was Adler, Carmen from IT, someone from HR, and Callie. She looked nervous. I'm really nervous. Adler slapped a file on the table. Thicker than before. We know the truth now. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. And man, her face. I'd seen her lie 1,000 times, but this time she had nothing. No smirk. No smugness. Just fear. Hope orange is still your color, I said quietly. She turned white. The cops entered 5 minutes later. I didn't flinch when the officers stepped in. The room went quiet, but the silence felt like it was vibrating, like the whole building knew something big was happening behind that conference room door. One of the cops, a tall guy with a buzz cut and a sharp jaw, stepped forward. Callie Rhodes. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted between me and the folder, then over to Adler, then the officer. I don't understand what this is, she said, her voice barely holding steady. You're under arrest for identity theft and corporate fraud, the officer said. We have a warrant. Wait, no, there's been a mistake, she stammered, stepping back like the wall behind her had an exit she could slip through. I didn't. Troy must have done something to frame me. He's the one who hates me, ask anyone. Ma'am, place your hands behind your back. The other officer moved in. She actually tried to sidestep him. Troy, please, she snapped, eyes wide, desperate. Tell them you're setting me up. For a moment, I just stared at her. She looked like a stranger. Gone was the girl who used to con her way out of chores or cry her way into mom's purse. This woman. She was cornered, caged, and still couldn't stop trying to control the narrative. But I didn't say a damn word. She kept shouting as they cuffed her. Pleading. Accusing. Crying. That high panicked voice echoing down the hall as they let her out like every ounce of power she thought she had was leaking out of her with each step. And I just stood there, watching. Adler finally exhaled. Well, he said, smoothing down his tie, that's a first. I turned slowly to him. Am I? You're reinstated, he said. Effective immediately. We're deeply sorry, Troy. HR will be in touch to process the back pay and your legal fees. I gave a short nod. Thanks. It should have felt good. Vindication. Justice. Something. But all I felt was tired. The news spread fast through the office. Midland isn't a small company, but it's close-knit, and dolls like that travel faster than printer paper on a windy loading dock. By the end of the week, people were acting weird around me. Not in a bad way, just cautious. Some were apologetic. Coworkers I barely spoke to stopped me in the break room like, hey man, I'm really sorry about everything, or glad it got cleared up. That must have been a nightmare. It was. But I nodded, smiled, said thanks, and went about my day. I didn't need their pity. I needed peace. I thought maybe I could finally get that now. Until my parents called. The call came at 9:48 p.m. on a Sunday. I was watching reruns of Frasier with a beer in hand and Cooper, my golden retriever, snoring at my feet. The screen lit up with Mom's cell. I almost didn't answer. Hey Mom, I said flatly. Troy, she said. Her voice was tight, like someone holding in tears or rage. I couldn't tell which. Something wrong. She paused. I got a call from Callie. Of course she did. She says this whole thing was a misunderstanding. I closed my eyes. Counted to 3. She says you set her up. I took a slow sip of beer. You believe her? I don't know what to believe, Mom said, voice cracking. She sounded so scared, Troy. She says she's being framed, that you're holding a grudge. Mom. I interrupted, sharper than I meant. She used my login to steal from my company. There's security footage. Digital logs. Eyewitnesses. She said you could have faked those. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I couldn't believe she still refused to see it. Jesus, Mom. You raised her to believe she'd never face consequences. This is what that looks like now. She's your sister, Mom said, barely above a whisper. Yeah, I said. And you always chose her. I hung up. Days passed. Then weeks. Callie was in the county, awaiting her arraignment. I got calls from her lawyer. Ignored them. Then letters. Ripped them up. But the silence from my parents? That hurt the most. I thought they'd come around. That once the evidence piled high enough, they'd finally see her for what she was. But old habits die hard. They didn't want a daughter who conned her way into jail. They wanted a victim. Someone to save. And if that meant painting me as the villain again, so be it. It wasn't just about Callie anymore. It was about all the years they didn't see me. All the birthdays they forgot because she was having a breakdown. All the times I succeeded quietly while she failed loudly. All the invisible ways I'd been set aside. I'd been holding on to the idea that maybe, just maybe, one day they'd get it. That day never came. About 3 weeks after the arrest, I drove over to their place. They didn't answer my texts and I needed closure, even if it was messy. The house looked the same. Neatly trimmed hedges. Wind chimes clinking softly. I knocked. Waited. Dad opened the door. He didn't smile. Didn't step aside. Just looked at me like he didn't know if he was ready to talk or throw me out. Hey, I said. Hey. I need to talk. He stepped back. I walked in. Mom was on the couch, clutching a throw pillow like it was a lifeline. I sat in the armchair across from them. She's lying, I said simply. We don't know that, Dad said. You do, I snapped. You just don't want to admit it. She's not well, Mom said, voice shaking. She's never been well. You've always been the strong one, Troy, but she's fragile. She's manipulative. She's your sister. She's a criminal. The room went still. I'm done carrying this family's guilt, I said quietly. I did nothing wrong. And you still chose her. She needed us, Dad said. So did I replied. No one said anything for a long time. Then I stood up. Looked around the room I grew up in. The pictures on the wall. The school portraits. The outdated couch. The smell of pot roast lingering in the air. You'll hear from her lawyer again soon, I said, heading for the door. But not from me. And I walked out. After I left my parents' house, I drove around for a while. Not going anywhere. Just circling blocks. Listening to the hum of the tires on the pavement. Letting the silence eat at me. That kind of silence, it's not peaceful. It presses on your chest. Makes every breath feel like effort. I ended up at a 24-hour diner I hadn't been to in years. Rusty's, off Euclid Avenue. Still had the same cracked leather boots and that old jukebox in the corner nobody touched anymore. I ordered coffee I didn't want and stared out the window like maybe the parking lot had answers. The waitress, Cindy, I think, recognized me. Long time, Troy, she said, setting the mug down. You look like hell. Thanks, Cindy. Just what I needed. She smiled. No judgment. Just kindness. Want a piece of pie in the house? Yeah, I said after a beat. Yeah, I think I do. I sat there until 2 in the morning. Thinking. Replaying everything. My sister's betrayal. My parents' blindness. The look on Adler's face when he realized he'd almost fired the wrong person. And it hit me. The worst part wasn't the embezzlement. It wasn't even the arrest. It was how easily everyone had believed she was the victim, and I was the monster. The next few weeks were quiet. At work, I kept my head down. Carmen from IT stopped by once, dropping off some final documentation, and hesitated by my desk. I'm glad it wasn't you, she said. I nodded. Me too. You were always the guy who helped people without being asked. I knew something didn't feel right. That meant more than I let on. I think I just smiled and said thanks, but it stuck with me. Maybe someone had seen me clearly, even when I hadn't noticed. Callie was denied bail. Her attorney, some guy named Harold Moss, tried to argue that she was suffering from mental health issues, was under extreme duress, and had no prior record. But Midland's lawyers were ruthless. They had evidence, witnesses, system logs, camera footage. Moss couldn't even spin it without looking like he'd just read the file an hour earlier. I watched the arrangement via Zoom. My hands clenched the armrests the whole time. She looked tired, dressed in beige county clothes, her hair tied back in a way I'd never seen before. Less curated. Less Callie. She still didn't look sorry. The plea hearing was set for the next month. She was facing up to 5 years if it went to trial. And yet, my parents didn't budge. They started posting online about injustice. About how our daughter isn't perfect, but she doesn't deserve this. They even started a GoFundMe for her legal fees. I found it through a coworker who forwarded me the link with a WTF subject line. The page said, Callie Rhodes is a vibrant, creative spirit who has faced hardship and misunderstanding. She deserves a second chance, not a prison cell. Help us fight for her future. They raised $1,200 in 2 weeks. I couldn't decide if I wanted to puke or scream. One night, I came home from work and found a package on my doorstep. No return address. No stamps. Just a manila envelope shoved under the mat. Inside was a letter. From Callie. It was handwritten. Not typed. And her penmanship was rushed, lines slanted, ink smudged in places. She never was one for details. Troy, I know you probably won't read this. I know you hate me. Maybe I deserve that. But you have to believe me, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was trying to fix a situation, not make it worse. I was drowning. You always had it together, and I thought maybe if I could just shift things around for a little while, it'd even out. You'd be okay. You're always okay. I didn't think they'd find out. I didn't think you would get hurt like that. I didn't think you'd walk away for good. She ended with, tell mom and dad I love them. I don't think they believe me anymore either. Callie, I didn't respond. I folded the letter back up and stuck it in a drawer I hadn't opened in years. The one with all the junk from college. Old concert tickets. A photo of us as kids at the Iowa State Fair. She was holding cotton candy, and I had my arms crossed like I already knew something was wrong. Cooper started sleeping on my bed again. He used to prefer his crate, but lately, he wouldn't leave my side. I think he sensed the change in me. I wasn't angry all the time, not anymore. I was just worn down. Like something heavy I'd been carrying for decades had finally dropped, and all that was left was the ache from holding it so long. Work offered me a promotion not long after, lead financial coordinator. More responsibility, higher pay. I said yes, but part of me felt hollow even as I signed the acceptance papers. I had no one to tell. I thought about texting my parents. Just a simple, got promoted. But I knew what the response would be. That's great, Troy. By the way, Kelly called today. About 6 weeks after the arraignment, I got another letter. This one wasn't from her. It was from Mom. Troy, I know you don't want to hear from us right now. I understand that. But I need you to know something. Kelly called me from jail yesterday. She said she misses you. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. We've been going to see a family counselor. It was recommended by the church. Maybe too little too late, I know. But I need you to understand, this wasn't easy for us. Watching our daughter be arrested, seeing her in that uniform. It shattered something in me. I see her differently now. I see you differently too. We failed you. Not just this time. Maybe. Every time. I hope you'll come back one day. Not for Callie. Not for forgiveness. But for yourself. Love, Mom. I didn't know what to do with that either. A few days later, my lawyer called. The DA's office had offered a plea deal. 2 years in prison, 3 on parole. No trial. Callie had to plead guilty to fraud and theft. No appeal. She's leaning toward taking it, he said. I thanked him. Hung up. Sat down at the kitchen table with a glass of whiskey, staring at the wall like maybe it could tell me what the hell I was supposed to feel. Relief? Anger? Closure? I didn't know anymore. The day Callie officially took the plea deal, it rained hard. Not the peaceful kind either. It was one of those cold, relentless Iowa spring rains that felt personal, like the weather was grieving something too. I didn't go to court. I thought about it. I got dressed that morning, even had the car keys in hand. But then I sat down at the kitchen table, looked out the window at the gray sky, and just couldn't move. There was nothing left for me in that courtroom. No apology that would feel real. No justice that would undo the past. Just a formality in a system I never asked to be dragged into. My lawyer called me afterward. She took the deal, he said. 2 years, possibly 18 months with good behavior and restitution over time. Parole restrictions after release. It's done. Thanks for letting me know. You okay? No, he didn't ask anything else. Good man. That night I walked Cooper longer than usual. Past the usual blocks, through the empty playground on 42nd, down to the river where the water was high from all the runoff. I stopped near the footbridge and leaned on the rail, watching the water rush below. There's something weird about grief when it's not clean. When you don't know exactly what you're grieving. The person? The relationship? The version of them you wished existed? I wasn't mourning Callie going to prison. I was mourning the idea that maybe she could have been better. That maybe we could have been real siblings, not just characters in the same screwed-up play. When I got home, there was a voicemail from Dad. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, son, but I want you to know I'm sorry. I should have believed you from the start. We both should have. We weren't fair. Not for a long time. I don't expect you to forgive that, but I hope we get a chance to talk someday. He sounded old. Older than I remembered. I didn't delete the message. Didn't return the call either. A week later, I ran into someone unexpected. I was at the hardware store, picking up stains for a new shelf I was building. My latest attempt to keep busy and away from my own thoughts. I'd just turned down an aisle when I nearly collided with someone coming around the corner. Whoa, sorry, oh. Troy. It was Melanie Brewer. I hadn't seen her since high school. We'd shared a few classes, had mutual friends. She'd been a quiet, artsy girl back then. Now she looked grounded. comfortable, holding a toddler on one hip and a half-full basket in the other. Melanie, I said, surprised. Wow. It's been a long time, she smiled. Are you still in Des Moines? Yeah. Haven't escaped yet. Same. Well, I did for a bit. Came back after my mom got sick. We talked for a few minutes. Nothing deep. Just small town catching up. But it felt nice. Like there were still people out there who remembered me without the weight of all this mess. Before Callie, before the trial, before I had to question everything. She gave me her number before we parted ways. Maybe coffee sometime? If you're up for it. I smiled for real. Maybe for the first time in months. Yeah. I think I'd like that. Of course, just when things feel like they might be leveling out, the past has a way of reminding you it's not done with you yet. I got a letter the next Monday. Handwritten. County jail stamp. Callie. Again. But this time, it wasn't an apology. Troy, I know I messed up. I know you hate me. But prison is a nightmare and I don't know how I'm going to make it through. No one comes to visit. Mom and Dad barely talk to me anymore. They said they're ashamed. You win, okay? You got your justice. But I'm begging you. Please don't forget I'm still your sister. If you won't write, fine. But maybe just think about me once in a while. Even if it's hate. Hate's better than nothing. Callie, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't answer. Not yet. The hardest part of all of this, harder than being accused, harder than being abandoned, even harder than watching her walk out in cuffs, was the realization that I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted to understand. Honesty. Something real. And now that she couldn't lie anymore, now that it was all out in the open, what was left between us? Nothing? Everything? I don't know. But the silence felt different now. Less empty. More like space. I didn't reply to Callie's letter. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I felt too much. And I knew if I responded, it would either be venom or pity, and I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of either. I needed time. And distance. But I didn't forget her words, you win, okay? She was right. I did win. But not because she was behind bars. Not because the court believed me. Not because her lies finally fell apart. I won because, for the first time, I wasn't playing her game anymore. In the months that followed, life got quieter. Not easier, but quieter. The chaos that had wrapped around me for most of my life was just gone. Like someone finally turned off a radio I didn't realize had been blasting for years. My promotion at work came with more responsibilities, but I leaned into it. I stopped over-explaining myself to people. I stopped apologizing when I hadn't done anything wrong. I stopped letting other people decide my worth. Melanie and I started getting coffee every other weekend. Then once a week. Then dinner. I told her everything eventually. Callie, the arrest, the trial, my parents. She didn't flinch. Just listened. Told me her own stories, her own broken family threads. We laughed a lot more than I expected to. And some nights, when it got quiet, she'd just sit beside me in silence, and it was the most comforting thing in the world. And then one morning, about 9 months after Callie started serving her sentence, I got a call from her parole officer. Hi, Mr. Rhodes. Just confirming, your sister listed you as a potential housing contact for her supervised release program. I nearly dropped my phone. She what? She filled out paperwork listing your address as her planned residence. No, I said immediately. Absolutely not. There was a pause on the other end. That's fine, the officer said. We just needed confirmation. She'll have to make other arrangements. I hung up and stared at the wall, stunned. She still thought I was a fallback. A soft place to land. Like after everything, I'd somehow feel obligated to open my home to her. I wasn't mad. I was ready. And that's when the idea started. Not revenge in the classic sense. Not espotage. Not confrontation. Just something poetic. Something true. I contacted Midland's HR department. Hey, I said. I'm curious. Do we still have an internship program running this summer? We do, she said. It's remote now. Why? I told her I wanted to sponsor a spot. Privately. Full ride, paid stipend. But with one condition. It had to go to a formerly incarcerated young adult who wanted to rebuild their life the right way. I worked with a local nonprofit that helps people re-enter the workforce after prison. I met with candidates, did interviews, and read essays. And when the HR team finally approved my pick, a 22-year-old kid named Devin who did 2 years for a nonviolent drug charge, I made sure he got the mentorship, support, and training Callie could have had if she'd ever stopped lying long enough to accept help. Devin was smart, eager, honest in a way that shook me. He asked once, "Why me? Why are you helping me?" And I told him the truth. Because someone like you deserves a second chance. And someone like my sister didn't. Callie got out on parole after serving 17 months. She didn't write. She didn't call. Instead, I heard from my parents again. It was a Saturday morning. I was at the farmer's market with Melanie, helping her pick out tomatoes. My phone buzzed with a message from Mom. Callie's out. She's staying with us for now. She wants to make amends. Please think about visiting. I stared at the screen for a long time. Melanie looked over. Something wrong. I shook my head slowly. No. Just someone trying to rewrite history again. I didn't reply. 3 weeks later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. But the writing was familiar. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. Troy, I don't expect anything. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Again. But this time, I'm not asking you to forgive me or help me or do anything for me. I just wanted you to know that I get it now. I really do. I spent every day there thinking about how I'd ruin not just my life, but yours. I thought I was surviving. I thought I was being clever. But I was just scared. And selfish. I don't expect a relationship. I'm not asking for a clean slate. I just want you to know, I don't blame you anymore. I blame myself. You deserved better. And I'm sorry I didn't see that until now. Callie this time didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel satisfied. Just peace. I folded the letter and slid it into that same drawer with the others. Then I took out a blank card, wrote 2 words, and dropped it in the mailbox. I know. Melanie and I moved in together that fall. Cooper took over the couch, then the bed, then basically the whole house, but neither of us minded. My parents and I still don't talk much. There's no hatred left, just distance. Healthy, quiet distance. I don't think they ever truly changed. Maybe they never will. But I did. For the first time in my life, I stopped looking for closure from people who never gave me honesty. I stopped chasing peace in places that only offered performance. And as for Callie, she got a job eventually. Some small marketing firm out in Omaha that didn't ask too many questions. I hear she's keeping her head down, paying her restitution in monthly installments, going to therapy, staying out of trouble. And that's fine. Because her life isn't mine to watch anymore. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't rage. It's not fire or fury or public humiliation. Sometimes it's waking up each day knowing you broke the cycle. You walked away clean. And you never looked back.